Sales trainer, sales coach, international keynote speaker. I want to welcome you to this installment of Speaking of Sales Live. This is the talk show for salespeople by salespeople. As always, flanked by the two best that I know, Mr. David Kamara and Mr. John Waechter. And today is just a little bit after Labor Day. We just did a great event. One of the sales training sessions we did is the day after Labor Day, and now. Although we're not in the last quarter, we're certainly knocking on the door of the last quarter. And for the people that are in sales, this is crunch time. Either you've got numbers to make, either self-imposed or imposed by the people that you work with. And now you got to step it up, right? You may have done some great stuff when you came out of the gate early in January. And again, this Labor Day kind of gives you, in my opinion, kind of this natural reset. It gives you the opportunity to kind of revisit all of the things that you hope to be able to do when you started, and now ultimately, now need to do in order to step it up. So
yeah, I mean, by the way, for the record, I didn't have an issue with the countdown from 5 to 1. It was pretty fundamental.
Yeah. Yes.
I think I kind of learned that early in life.
Yes.
But regardless. But keep in mind though, because September is still 4 months out from the new year. Mm-hmm. From a business standpoint, so many mentally shut down December.
Yeah, that's true.
So September, October, November are truly the most commercially important months of the year, because you never know what's going on. Just never know.
Yeah, it's true.
And so
very much so.
So as a result, we've got to pick this thing up the day after Labor Day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, as we talked about in the session, a lot of what we talk about is techniques and the words that we use, and the behaviors is the environment where you use. I can tell you what to say. I can tell you kind of create the environment to say it. What we can't do is we can't move your lips for you. And very much this is attitudinal, because there are many people that just take the, what they did in the summer. So maybe it was more relaxed, more lackadaisical, maybe not quite as focused as it was. And they just kind of drag that into September. And I think what they do is they, not surprisingly, don't get a boost. They're not doing anything different. So therefore, they're going to get the same results. So if you're getting mediocre results in the summer for whatever reason, you're just going to get more of that. So,
exactly.
David, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm always about having solutions. So I was saying, maybe can we just give some solutions that maybe people can do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
fire away.
Yeah, so, let's think about yourself. Like, you guys have been working through this year. Mm-hmm. We're reaching this point, just as Don said, like at the end of the summer, things like this. So let's think about how maybe you can start to little things like maybe rebranding, checking your collateral. So many people have used their collateral. So
your mic. When your jacket moves, the mic makes a sound.
So sorry. Run that back?
Yeah. It's okay. Or put your mic on the tie. Sometimes the tie is even better.
That's okay.
That's right. That's behind baseball, by the way, for our viewers. That's all part of production that you should never see. But this being a live event.
Hey, it's Moneyball.
Yeah, exactly, Moneyball. You get what you get. But it's interesting because you are right. And even interestingly enough, we just came from a networking group that we host, and there were people at the very networking group that had no business cards, no marketing pieces, nothing. And again, I always kiddingly say, as a sales trainer, that hurts my heart when you hear something like that. So you're right, David. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thoughts.
So, like you can, I'm just giving you some things that maybe we can do to jumpstart, create some profitability. Mm-hmm. Think about maybe just changing your collateral. So many of us have used the same collateral for years, unfortunately.
That's true. Yeah.
Some things we can change. Let's change some of our payment options, right? Mm-hmm. Today we're living in a world where there are many ways to reach you, and many ways to pay you. If you have limited options, you're literally limiting your customers.
That's right.
Let's think about things like Don. I got this one from Don, but learning to piggyback off of existing relationships. There are people who are in your field who don't exactly line up with the exact same customers you have. But guess what? Because you're in the same field, guys, let's try working together. Imagine maybe doing joint programming, you know, saving some money on collateral together. Let's print things together, right? So these are just certain things that maybe we can do just so we can add to maybe changing how things go.
Right. Well, I think one of the simplest ones, and this actually came up in a coaching session yesterday. There was an event coming up on the East Coast, and I had a coaching client that wanted to participate. Unfortunately, they didn't want to spend the $1,000 that it took to get the table. And I said, well, don't you know one or two people that you can share it with? And she says, yes. Now, I know statistically, you don't diminish your position. So if David and I shared a table and I was on one half and he had his stuff on the other half, it's not like I now have 50% less visibility. I still have the same visibility because I'm standing behind the table, as opposed to that. So, you know, maybe it's 3 people. Maybe it's some cooperative, and part of the who, what, where, when, and how that we talk about in the session the day after Labor Day talks about who you want to connect up with, how you want to connect up. We redo all of our marketing materials, all of our peripherals. At the end of the year, everything gets scrapped. And then we look at the start, stop, or increase. You know, do we want to use this, or do we want to scrap that, or do we want to improve it, or do we want to change it? And we've kind of have this self-imposed choke point. I believe, however, that you're absolutely right. I believe the business year, different than most people, isn't January 1st through December 31st. I believe the actual business year is the day after Labor Day, essentially till the kids get out of school. Because that's the longest continuous, unobstructed business time. Obviously, you've got Christmas in there, and that's a little bit of time, and Halloween and Thanksgiving, but you've got the greatest contiguous amount of time from the day after Labor Day till the day before, you know, the day when the kids go back to school or summer vacation or, you know, the thing. So this is really the business year, and yet most people come after Labor Day and don't feel reinvigorated like they're restarting something. A lot of times just a continuation, and not surprisingly, they don't get the results they want.
This is the time of year where you have to dig deep and be really, really assessment oriented of your asset, because you all have a lot of assets. And this is a little bit on your point, David. But you all have a lot of assets that we don't normally think about as being assets. You know, and it might be even our faith. You know, or it might be anything. But this is a time of year where we want to take on our inventory. And say, are we utilizing every one of our assets for our benefit? Are we using action? The house we live in? Are we using other inanimate objects, or are we using personal relationships and maximizing them? You know, and it really does take a self-study to sit under the big tree, you know, or to sit by the lake.
I absolutely agree.
You know, and just say, okay, you know, where can I improve? You know,
I think you always, what you bring up, you're reminding me, as always, is that, guys, like you said, this is another time to revisit your why, right? What is your motivation? Why did you actually start your business? What are things that need to be done? Remind yourself, if you do not hit your goals, what is going to happen as a result? You know, remind yourself, you know, if you do hit your goals, what things are going to be coming your way. And when we remind ourselves of the why, it sort of gives us a reinvigoration and sort of pushes us towards our goals. So this is definitely the time to be reminded of that.
And it's interesting because you mentioned asset inventory, and you also mentioned it, so I think it bears at least potentially extension. You know, one of the strongest assets, I tell people, is their human capital, their interpersonal relationships. And not surprisingly, for our company, Don Zavis Sales Training, September is testimonial month. And I know that functionally every month should be testimonial month, but the reality is, you know, we are people that need a focus. We need that focusing elemental. So September being testimonial month, not surprisingly coinciding with what we believe is the actual business year, is a perfect opportunity. And nothing is worse. And you know, and you see this frequently. You'll go into somebody's place of business, you'll be sitting in their waiting room, you glance up on the wall, and there's a testimonial letter from 2007. And the first thing that I think of is that you've done nothing noteworthy since 2007, right? You've done nothing that you know needed to go in that frame in that place, and a lot of people don't. You know, they're out there telling the world how great they are when they have a voluptuous amount of clients that are more than willing to say good, positive things. So again, looking at your assets, looking at your collateral pieces, looking at your marketing pieces, looking at your process. Right? You know, am I doing it? And you're right. Now with Zelle and a lot of other payment methods, for those that are forward thinking, now, you know, going to physically pick up a check might be, you know, the thing of the past, because you really don't need to do that. But again,
Well, no business in the world, in my humble opinion, no business in the world could ever limit the number of ways that you can get reimbursed. I mean,
oh no, God no.
you know, never. I mean, take credit cards, take
Yep.
Square, take
Yep.
Zelle, take Venmo,
Yep.
take a
Cash
check,
App,
Take-
take cash
Yep.
right on the barrel.
Got trade relationships.
You know,
we have
I
relations
mean,
with trade.
yeah, trade.
Yeah.
You know, trade is good.
Trading services.
And so, but you know, one of the things I tell people all the time, you know, well, I don't sell. You know, I'm sort of going,
Yeah.
you know,
You know, what they're really saying is, I don't participate in the new financial world.
right.
You know, and
Exactly right.
Yeah, but like anything, it's going to take a period of time. There was a period of time where, you know, and it's interesting if you go back into the beginning of the internet, you know, they said never put never put your credit card information online, right? Never put that online. Now we do it routinely at a million places. And never think that to be problematic. So in our last 15 minutes, I want to just kind of get a gauge of us, you know, what we think the new year is going to look like. Now, you know, obviously, again, we're not in the last quarter, but we're certainly knocking on its door.
Correct.
And we're coming off, you know, in the last couple years, 3, 4, 5 years, market conditions that couldn't even be thought of. You know, you had pandemic, and you go back to 2008 with the real estate fallout, and you've had all of these, you know, financial cataclysms that have taken place over these last couple of years. You know, now this is the first full year that the economists identify is the post-pandemic year. So 2003 is the first, from January 1st till potentially the end, is the first post-pandemic year. So John, let me ask you, what do you think the future is going to look like for the modern salesperson?
It's going to be a little bit of a difference because it's an election cycle.
That's true.
It's an election cycle with high interest rates.
Yep.
For the first time,
Yeah.
and that those two things have kind of combined in a while. So it's going to be hard to predict. It really is going to be hard to predict. But basically, you know, so when I don't understand my world, I just go back to my relationship.
Okay.
I go back
I agree
to
with that. Yep.
my people,
Yep.
the that I know and that I trust and I do commerce with. I just make sure that that we have the saying that, you know, always treat prospects like customers and your prospects.
Yes.
I just kind of like bury myself in an undetermined environment. I just kind of like bury myself in that to make that money still keeps coming in.
Yeah.
And that I still make a not only financial but
Yeah, and interestingly enough, and as to expand for the listeners that have never heard that line before, the idea of treat your customers like prospects and your prospects like customers, it really came out of the idea that you want to treat your prospects like old friends, people that you've known for a while. You have that very comfortable demeanor with them, that open conversation of somebody you've known forever. But in terms of your customers, the fact that they did business with you yesterday is absolutely no guarantee they're going to in the future. You've got to treat your customers like prospects because there's no obligation for them to do business with you. You earn their business with every new business cycle. So that idea of, you know, treating your prospects like customers and your customers like prospects really is a fundamental logic of where you have to be, and I couldn't agree more. You know, David, your thoughts?
Yeah. So as we're moving forward, guys, you guys have to recognize that most of our customers moving forward, customers are getting smarter, technology is getting more access to information. So as salespeople, as business providers, we have to maintain and obtain increased social proof. What does that mean? So making sure that we are able to reach our customers from a social media aspect, actually create real meaningful conversations, actually comment back when people comment on you, actually have real video testimonials. People want to see other people talking about you. You talking about yourself is not going to be enough. Making sure that you guys are experts. Remember, putting out articles, putting out video content, showing you in your element, working, showing you doing what you do best. People need to see you do what you do best. This is how you're going to convince the average customer today, because guess what? They're inundated with too many offers from everybody else. Be different. Show them why you're great, literally.
Yeah, no, I think that's excellent. I guess my 2 cents to throw in, I believe the business world in 2024 is actually going to be harder. And I think it's going to be harder in a couple different ways. I think, the challenges we have financially, now we have, gas has gone up, and apparently there's really no substantive difference. Now, in a sales environment, most of us live in our cars, right? Going from place to place, especially if you embrace the idea that professional selling is a face-to-face, eye-to-eye business, you're going to be there, or getting on a plane to visit someone. And I think that the rabbit hole or the path that you don't want to go down is the one that offers distance solutions. So, for example, for a long time, people sold Zoom and Skype and a lot of these as an alternative to travel. And the idea was that, well, you don't have to get in a plane and visit customer X. You can Skype, or you can Zoom, or you can something like that. And I always use the what would my wife allow? All right, so so Mrs. Zavis, which I talk about all the time. Her name is Janet, by the way. She's a real person. All right. So Mrs. Zavis, so if and Janet and I have been together.
Happy to know that.
Yeah, but Janet and I have been together since she was 14 and I was 18, right? So I would always run things past her and say, if we were married and could I live someplace else and just do a Zoom call with you? Would you be okay with that? And she would look at me like, yeah, no. And so I applied a lot of these Janet-isms to the relationships I have. The problem being is for the people, when they hear them, it reinforces the bad choice they already want to make. So the person that doesn't want to get in their car because gas is $4.35 a gallon and drive across town to meet with a client or even a prospect sells themselves on the idea, well, I can be just as effective on the phone. Or I'm not going to get in a plane and I'm not going to fly cross country for my oldest client that represents 30% of our business. I'll just call him, or I'll do a Zoom, right? I don't need to see him. And I would think to myself, no. All the things that we've been pitched with, professional selling, again, in my opinion, is a face-to-face, eye-to-eye, belly-to-belly business. If I can't see him face-to-face, I like a phone call. I don't like a text. Don't send me a text. God forbid, don't send me emojis on your text. I'm not a 13-year-old girl, all right? And I think there's so many people that have bought into this as an acceptable alternative because they don't want to spend the money or they don't want to take the chance. Again, we talked about it in session today. It's the person that buys 500 business cards 3 years ago and still has 475 of them. And their thing is, well, I don't want to just give them away for people to throw them out. And my thought is, well, how many people legitimately didn't get the 475 you kept? That might have been something. So I'm telling my clients for 2024, get away from all of this silliness. Human beings are not meant to be online in a relationship. A text relationship is not a relationship. Emails are only what you do when nothing else is available to you. It's just one-way information dump. Go back to Sales 101, which is pick up the phone, walk into people's business. We promote networking because, in my opinion, networking starts where every other form of marketing hopes to end up. So no matter what you do, so if you're doing something, you put an ad in the paper and somebody calls you, and then maybe you exchange emails, and then maybe you exchange texts, and then maybe you talk on the phone, but ultimately your relationship is consummated by a face-to-face meeting. We start there. That's where these relationships start. So sales 101, which doesn't change, which can't be automated or interneted or anything like that, to me is the most important.
There is no long-term substitute.
Yep.
Period. It's where relationships are not necessarily born, but it's where they're born. You know, that's exactly. I mean, so establish a relationship with somebody initially on LinkedIn or whatever. You know,
But I don't even call that a relationship. That's a contact.
You know, that's a contact.
Yeah.
But to develop the relationship, got to be and much coffee, lunch.
The breaking of bread, absolutely.
Some breaking of bread.
Yeah, it's very primordial. I mean, that's just.
Yeah, and so it's just, you know, and anybody who did them that there's a legitimate substitute for that, good luck.
Well, but I think the problem is the marketplace comes in, and you know, and then Zoom is saying, you don't have to travel, or FTD says, well, just send them flowers. You don't actually have to go visit mom and dad. Just send them flowers because you care enough to send the very best. And
Exactly.
and again,
and those flowers will be dead in 4
well,
days.
for me, the out of sight is the out of mind. I've never been a believer in the absence makes the heart grow fonder. I think absence makes you easier to forget. And we're coaching and training people how to, take your neglected clients that you're giving away and teaching them how to leverage those relationships. So I believe in 2024, you better go back to Sales 101, which is see people, break bread with them, give them little gifts, tell them how much you appreciate them, but show them. Don't just say it. Actually show them of exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it and what that relationship looks like. And ultimately, again, in my opinion, that's what has made me successful. And I haven't found a way to internet it, e-blast it, email it, text it. I mean, you're young, you're a kid compared to me, but I don't know. Maybe you bring a different voice to that.
Obviously, I think that technology has now become a little bit of a veil that unfortunately people can actually hide behind. And what Don speaks of is recognizing, the most powerful connection is that interpersonal connection between humans. When you look at somebody in the eye, when you see somebody's body language, you're able to gain so much knowledge of actually who they are and how they're actually feeling. So the way you're going to differentiate yourself within this technological market is actually remembering the human touch.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Well, keep in mind, our fundamental mantra is we are problem solvers looking for problems to solve.
Yes.
And when you ignore body language and nations in your voice, all that stuff, that's a real big disadvantage if you're not on top of that game.
We're only getting part of the story.
Yeah.
You're getting, you're watching the movie without a sound.
The problem.
Yeah.
You're not getting the problem.
Yes.
You're only getting part of the problem.
But again, I'll go back to what I said, and that's why I want to make sure that these sessions are effectual and really give good application and applicable things. And again, is coming from 3 very eminent sales professionals, the sales part of it again hasn't changed. People are just people, and so much of what we do is connected through what we call human dynamics, and it's an understanding of how people react. Given a certain set of stimuluses, people will generally react the same way. So, if you were in a quiet, you're in a library and you hear a big sound, everybody kind of jumps at the same time. Now that's an example of that, but it's the same way in business. If people feel loved and appreciated and that you respect them and you value the relationship on both sides, that it's a win-win, not I take advantage of you and that's why it makes sense. To me, that just makes sense, and that really has never changed. I believe that time is the currency of love, and that I believe that you cannot shower enough love and time on the people that you love, family, friends, certainly clients. I'm blessed by being at a point in my world where I only do business with people I like, because if I don't like you, I don't want to be with you. Now, I'm not saying I didn't do that when I was younger. I think we all had some version of that that we went through. But I think coming into 2024, we eat what we kill. And I think that my fear is that people are going to allow themselves to settle for less. They're going to live on a lower income and not strive to make more. They're going to, maybe, sorry, sweetie, we can't take the kids to Disney World this year. Well, by the time you can afford to take them to Disney World, they're going to be married with 2 kids of their own, right? And so, there's been this lowering the bar year after year after year after year, where people are wanting less and less and less and less, and maybe they're shrouding themselves in the idea that it's anti-materialism. But I've never met anybody who, given the choice of getting $1 million or not having $1 million, they'll take the $1 million every single time. I've never had somebody say, nope, I don't want your $1 million because it'll change me. They're like, bring it on, I'm happy to be changed.
For the record, I will take your $1 million.
Hell yes, exactly. Absolutely.
Give me $1 million, I'll be happy to accept it.
So as we close up today's session, John, so much of what we do, part of our crystal ball is sharing with our clients and our listeners and our viewers what our professional idea of the future is going to be. So if you had to distill it down to one actionable step, what would that be?
Basically, reestablish all your relationships early in the next holidays are great time frame.
Absolutely.
For reestablishing your holidays, and make sure that you understand what reinforce your subject matter expertise, so that when you with your expertise, it's hand in glove. And it's going to be a crazy time, election cycle, high interest rates, all that kind of stuff. But just, and to me, that's know what you do, you do it well, and reinvigorate your relationships. It's so much easier to get a customer that you've already had before, versus just going out into the world and trying to find new business.
I couldn't agree more. David, final thoughts?
Definitely. I just say that, moving forward, guys, let's remember to personalize yourself and your business. Become a human person that's relatable. There's a myriad of people doing a lot of the same things. Differentiate yourself by just being normal, letting people know what you like to do. Some of your hobbies, things like that, what you do with your family. You're just like them. Yeah. That's what people just want
humanize.
to know.
Relatable.
Humanize yourself. I agree. I think mine is and every year I kind of like to put a phraseology on it. It helps me in focusing. For me, 2024 is the year of the phone. Not the smartphone, the phone. Now, I'm not saying you can't use your smartphone. It's the year of the phone. Invest in the technology that has a headset, that has good, clear reception, that enables you to, not sound like you're in a 150-mile-an-hour wind tunnel. Whether it's a headset, whether it's earpods, use the phone. Even though I know that it sounds easier, to me, text and emails are what I call clandestine tools. You use them because you really don't want to talk to that person, but you know that you need to communicate with them. It's much like voicemail. Voicemail and answering machines were made by buyers who didn't want to talk to us. They had to give us something, so they created answering machines. So we feel better when we leave a message. They're not going to call us, but we feel better because we left a message. So for me, 2024 is the year of the phone. Use the phone. Texts and emails are only when you're not going to call somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? The phone's not appropriate. Text and emails are only to be used when there is no other choice. The first thing is face-to-face, but face-to-face even just practically has its limitations. So if it can't be face-to-face, 2024 is the year of the phone, and as John often says, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us and watching. We know there's a lot of things vying for your time, especially online, right? You know, and obviously this is an online format, but you know, I've always believed that the commitment that you're making to your sales education, I believe, comes back to you many times over, and that which you focus on, you get. You want to be a better golfer and you focus on better golfing, you'll be a better golfer. Right? If you focus on sales and want to be a better salesperson, by de facto, you'll be a better salesperson. So on behalf of myself, Don Zavis, and Mr. John Waechter and David Kamara, we wish you good selling. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a very pleasant afternoon.